Imagine, if you will, those 3 a.m. thoughts about time, space, or the odd and unusual things. These are not your everyday topics. These curiosities about the world and us seem more fiction than fact. This is a journey of enlightenment on subjects that fascinate the mind. Our findings may not change your views or beliefs, but let us share what we have researched along the way. Buckle up as we show you what we've discovered down the rabbit hole.
Hey everybody, welcome back to What If Down the Rabbit Hole. I'm Terry,
I'm Will.
and we got another one for you here. Pretty interesting one. Kind of a broad topic.
That seems to be our MO. I know we've been doing a lot of broad topics lately.
Yeah. Anyway, it's about meditation and the practices of it and different definitions of it, and in I guess even in a little bit of our own personal experience with it, perhaps.
For sure. For sure.
And like I said, it's a broad topic. It's something that there's no shortness of information on, really, as far as videos and all that. But we had talked about doing something like this, and we thought, well, why not now, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure where you want to start off. You want to start off with what is meditation?
I mean, yeah, I think we should probably go ahead and just define what meditation is.
Okay.
It seems like a big buzzword nowadays.
It is. Yeah.
You see it all over social media.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Meditation it's not a new thing, though.
No.
I don't want to say most people, but I guarantee there are a large number of people that don't realize how, would it be too much to say ancient?
I would
that
say
meditation really is.
I would say, now I will preface this with, this is my opinion, but it's sort of I would think a somewhat accurate opinion. It's probably been around as long as humankind has been around, really. I mean, obviously there's no documentation of going back that far, but I feel like it's a practice that's so old, like it's under every historical rock you could overturn. It's there.
I would think so.
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't subscribe to these sorts of things on social media, or maybe you do and you haven't really tried it, you're not really sure what meditation is, that sort of thing. Meditation is the practice or the process it involves focusing or clearing your mind, using a combination of mental and physical techniques. Techniques that are intended to encourage a heightened state of awareness, as well as focused attention. I would even go so far as, if you've been watching us for all of 5-6 episodes now, you'll see a theme here. It is a consciousness changing practice.
It could be, yeah.
I mean, it has shown to have numerous health benefits on both psychological and physical well-being.
Yes,
right?
Yes, absolutely.
You'll find different types of meditation that we're going to get into. They become a habitual practice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That anybody can do it, but at the same time, there are people that have dedicated their lives to it.
I once heard a yogi say that it's his appointment with God every day. He literally that's what he calls it, his appointment with God. So,
I mean, I feel like that is a really good description.
Yeah,
actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So along that, right, the process of meditation is, I would say, a lot of people, maybe not a lot of people, but certainly some people, depending on what you are attempting to meditate for,
Right.
would say that it is a successful turning inward of the mind.
Correct. I would agree with that.
So a conviction, if you will, that there's a higher truth that's more satisfying than what our, I'll say, current thought process or intelligence can conceive.
Yeah, I think that there's obviously we'll get into this a little bit more in depth, but there is so many definitions for it. There's so many types of it. There's so many ways to practice it. It's almost like we said coming in. I feel like we're painting with a very broad brush and all that, and a lot of it is stuff that we research, and a lot of it is personal experience. But yeah, it's I would say what you're describing is sort of what I look for into it anyway.
Right.
It's what I do with it.
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. Meditation, regardless of why you're doing it, how you're doing it, how you learn to do it, long and the short of it is it is a very personal thing.
Oh yeah, I would think so. It's just like anything else. It's like anything else in your life. You have a personal way you do everything. The way you eat, the way you sleep, how you conduct yourself physically every day, how you dress. It's very tailored to who you are and what makes you feel good as an individual. And obviously, like everything, there's a broad palette in which you could choose from.
Sure.
And work with, but ultimately you're going to find what works best for you. You know what I mean? And that all of it's okay. There's no wrong way.
Really, I would agree with that
to a certain extent. I mean, but like you hit it on the head. It is personal, very much so.
100%. I know we keep using this term, but as we tend to do, we're going to paint with a very broad brush here because, there is so much information out there about meditation, and it's very indicative of how you learned it, heard about it, the purpose behind it, right? We're not going to get that deep into it. If you want to know more, then certainly feel free to dive down those rabbit holes on your own.
Yeah. Or if you feel called to, leave a comment about anything specific you might want to know, and if we're able to, we'll definitely touch upon it on some episode.
Sure, we could definitely, if you'd like, do the research and give you the information we have for sure.
Why not?
So I don't know. It's been a while since I've seen a social media post about meditation, but I want to just touch real quick on, for those who may or may not have heard of it or understand anything about it outside of a religious aspect.
Right.
I love my science.
Oh yeah.
And one of the purposes of meditation is stress reducer.
Absolutely.
And I came across this study that was posted on ScienceDirect.com. And in this study, they took two groups of people. One group of people they had follow, and I wrote it down so that I didn't mess it up. What is the name of the thing? It is called the Health Enhancement Program, which there's a whole lot of steps to it. If you want to know more about that, I highly recommend just Googling it because there was way more than I wanted to put in the notes.
Yes.
But anyway, as far as meditation goes, right, they had this group of people do a mindfulness meditation practice, which we're going to talk about what that is in more detail a little bit later. But to, I guess, prove that what they were attempting to do was going to work, right, they had to create stress because it's a stress relief study. So they subjected the meditation group of people to the Trier social stress test. So essentially, there are two periods of time. There's a 10-minute period of time where these group of people are subjected to anticipation, and then another 10-minute where it's like the testing period. So essentially, they were told that you have to write a speech. You have 10 minutes to write a speech. And then, after that 10 minutes, they had to give that speech in front of an audience. And while they're giving that speech, the audience members were asking them arithmetic questions. Like they had to do math in their head.
That's insane.
So it's causing essentially a lot of mental stress.
I would think, yeah. I'm stressed out just thinking about it. That's
on
crazy.
top of that, to show there are physical results, the researchers rubbed capsaicin cream on their forearms to cause inflammation, right? So now their forearms are probably burning and swolled up.
Yeah.
And they're being subjected to a lot of mental stress. So then they went ahead and had them perform this mindfulness meditation. And what they found was, compared to that health enhancement program, the meditation was significantly better. There was reduction in the inflammation on their forearms. They actually had reduced, I won't say it got rid of, but reduced the mental stress from that initial testing, right? And they found that, unfortunately, that mental stress that was inflicted on them does have a residual effect, but that residual effect was lessened with the meditation than it was the health enhancement program.
I would agree with that. A name drop, a familiar name drop, Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe Dispenza. We talk about him on here a fair amount. He has his own meditations that he has. You could see them online. You could watch them. He has a few on YouTube. And if you belong to his site or whatever, he's got ones that that you could pay to get, and they're kind of known for being very long. They're a very in-depth meditation, and they're very physical. I recently tried one of his meditations, his free ones, and I think it was 20 some minutes, which I don't typically meditate that long on my day-to-day. I might have a day where that happens, but I'm typically like a 10-minute guy, just to kind of, clear everything out, just to hit the reset button kind of thing.
Sure.
And so I did it, and it was it was the most physically demanding meditation I've ever done. I actually had my abs and my back were sore when I was done with it, because he has you breathe and contract all these muscles, and the theory is you're bringing fluid from your spine into your pineal gland or whatever. I mean, he's got a bunch of them, and they're very. But the one thing that he, in his research, which is documented, he's found out is that these different meditations that they do, they trigger certain chemicals in the brain and chemicals in the body that boost immunoefficiency.
Right.
So healing and repair of the body happen faster. And that was one thing that him and Greg Braden, another name drop, were during the pandemic. Greg Braden was one of the people that WHO brought in to speak to, because Greg he's a world.
That stands for World Health Organization. For anybody who wasn't sure, was questioning it.
It's not the band The Who from England from the 60s. It's an actual thing. But Greg is a world traveler. He travels all over the world. He infamously never gets sick. And it's because of his practices. And one of the practices is meditation, just like Joe Dispenza. And there is actual medical documentation that there is an immuno benefit from meditation. And during the pandemic, a lot of doctors, including those two gentlemen, were recommending that people that are in lockdown and you're sitting at home and you're not doing nothing, meditate. It's gonna enhance your immune response to any virus you might get. So I think that's fascinating. That's where to your point, that's something that I try to tell people all the time. People that are always, we all know those people that are like, oh, I just feel like shit all the time and I'm tired and this and that.
Yep.
Try meditating, man. Take 5-10 minutes every day and try it. And to be fair, personal experience, when you start, it's not very easy and it's not very it's not very fun. It to me it was, and I really had to work at it to be
So
somewhat good at it.
I'm going to come back to that
Okay.
because you made two really excellent points. I'm going to cover one and then we'll come back to the other
Okay.
when we talk about different
Please.
types of meditation.
Please.
Right? You said about people who just always, I feel terrible, run down, da da da. I know a lot of people personally, especially since the pandemic, but more so, I feel like it covers a broader range of people who suffer from depression or anxiety or, just a number of different things, right? So meditation, they've proven time and time again, actually, meditation improves your mental health. And your, interestingly enough, I will call it a personal relationship or how you feel about yourself.
Very important.
It kind of enhances your self-awareness, right? And additionally, gives you better connectivity to your own body.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
That sounds weird, kind of vague, better connectivity to your own body. But you ever just like move your hand and then you never realize that you're actually doing it. You just know how. You ever actually try to just move one muscle at a time?
Oh yeah, no,
And-
I've done those practices. Yeah,
That's
it's
what
interesting.
I meant by better connectivity to your own body, right? When you learn to move each muscle individually, so to speak, it's amazing what you can actually do.
Oh sure, yeah. It's amazing too what touch even does. There's a practice that shaman do where when they want to draw awareness to their heart, they'll literally just put their hand like right where their heart is. And when you touch whatever part of your body, as soon as your fingers touch it, your awareness, your physical awareness is immediately drawn to that spot. And
Sure.
it causes you to focus on it. And that's how they do that as sort of a mindful exercise. Like if they have to make an important decision, like
Right.
should I do this or shouldn't I do that or whatever, they'll usually place a hand over their heart, direct contact, and that draws their awareness there. And they take a few minutes to, think about it or whatever. And
I feel like contemplate is the better word.
I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right.
So I feel like even though, and this is getting off on a tangent, but I want to expand on your heart thing, even though most people you think with your brain, right? But when it comes to making a decision, I would argue that 99% of people make decisions with their heart.
Sure.
And I feel like that is not a thinking thing, that's a contemplation.
Absolutely. It's an intuitive thing. So almost. I mean, not to go off another tangent, I'll just make a quick point. I know you know this point, but for those of you who might not, you actually have structures in your heart that are similar to what your neurons in your brain. They're called sensory neurites, and they perform the same function that your neurons in your brains do, but in your heart. And that is why you'll hear guys like, here goes that name again, Greg Braden, talk about, Joe Dispenza as well, talk about coherence, brain and heart coherence.
Right.
Because there are similar structures in both organs that basically perform the same function. You know what I mean? Emotional response, physical, implementing physical response in the body, everything. It's really fascinating. Won't go into it because we're not talking about that today, but there is information out there on it. So if you don't want to wait for us to do a video on it, which I'm sure we will one day,
Oh, 100%.
please,
We are definitely going to
please just use your tools at hand to look it up. It's really interesting stuff.
So I don't want to beat to death what meditation is good for. I feel like social media and what little bit we just talked about covers that quite well.
Yes.
I could go on for days with just scientific study after scientific study of what it's good for and how well it does. I think we should cover how to meditate, because meditation is such a broad term.
Yes.
That I'm sure that some of our listeners or watchers, if you're watching us on YouTube, have heard of meditation, or people, oh, you should meditate. Oh, you should meditate. What does that mean? Like, I'll be honest with you. I actually had to Google it. when I'm like, I should try meditation. I hear great things about it,
Mm-hmm.
So how do you do it?
Mm-hmm.
When somebody tells you to meditate, what is the first step?
Well, for me, it's always you want to get comfortable. You don't want to be. Now, I learned from watching videos from yogis because I thought, you know what, maybe learning from a upper middle class fitness instructor isn't the very more spiritual. We're commonly known, me and Will. Will's the science guy. I'm kind of the woo guy. I'm more of a, not that Will's not spiritual, and that you are very spiritual.
Agreed.
But, I'm kind of like, so I wanted to learn from the guys that are part of a millennia old tradition with it.
Sure.
And I was watching videos with these yogis, and the yogis actually will tell you that they don't recommend laying down. A lot of people do it. And once again, it's a personal thing. You do what you want.
Mm-hmm.
But they recommend you sitting because, and you should never, this is like a big thing with where I learned, never fall asleep during
Right.
This is a time for focus. It's not a time for rest.
I'd like to point out it's very easy to fall asleep when you're attempting to meditate.
Especially when you're new at it. So they even recommend, if you're tired, take a nap before you do it. Like take an hour nap or something before you do it. Don't do it when you're tired. And there's a bunch of different ways you could do it. You could sit and they have the half lotus position, the full lotus position. Some people just sit in a chair like you and I are right now. But ultimately, I believe it starts with being comfortable and getting yourself in a good posture. That's something that I always was told, and something that I practice. Stay in a good posture, keep your back. You want to keep your shoulders relaxed. You don't want to be all tensed up. You want to be relaxing is a big part of it. Hence, let's be comfortable right out the get go.
I agree. I also, when I Googled how to meditate, I'm like, logically it would make sense to follow somebody who has been practicing this for, I would say, part of the tradition,
right?
Multiple millennia, if you will, right? But all of the resources out there are going to tell you the same thing, right? The simplest method to start meditating: take a seat, get comfortable.
Right.
We're going to come back to your posture thing because I think that's very important.
It is.
But they, everybody recommends set a time limit, right? We talked about Joe Dispenza's guided meditations tend to be long.
Yes.
Right. And if you're brand new to meditating, sitting for 20 minutes or doing anything for 20 minutes could be a long time. Just seems a lot longer than what it really is.
Oh yeah.
So maybe just start with like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, something
less.
like that. And the whole thought process is in what I will call the simplest method is really to just calm your mind, focus on your breath, and try not to let your brain run wild on you, right?
Sort of like the way it was put to me was observe your thoughts and kind of treat it like, this is probably not this was the way it was explained. You know how apps like Tinder, you swipe.
Yep.
If a thought comes in that's not supposed to be there, like, oh, I got to do this, I got to do that, I'm going to be late for work, I'm going to be any kind of pesky thought like that you're trying to avoid, just swipe it aside, go back to focusing on your breath.
Sure.
And, focusing. There is a great deal of focus in this. It's relaxing, but you got to focus as well. That you have to, like you said, focus on your breath, keep all those pesky thoughts away, just keep monitoring them. Something comes up and you don't even know what's happening sometimes.
Right.
Like sometimes you're just there. Next thing you know, you're thinking about what you got to do yesterday, or I'm sorry, what you got to do tomorrow, or what you did yesterday, or, what's coming up next week. And,
Agreed.
And it's there, once it's there, just stop, kick it to the curb and get back to your breath. It's important.
So that's what I would call definitely the simple method, right? Where you're just in a quiet room by yourself with the least amount of distractions as possible, and you're just trying to quiet your mind, control your thoughts, that sort of thing.
Right.
There's also various assisted methods.
Yes.
for those of you who are interested. I know there are a lot of, what's that term? I want to call it an audiophile, but that I don't think is the actual word for it. So people are just really into music. We'll just call it that, right?
Yeah, the audio file's fine.
So,
Music lover.
and I did find personally when I was starting to meditate, this helps a lot.
It does. It really does.
And when it comes to music, there are so many different types of music that you can use to assist your meditation.
Yes.
And this is where that personal part of meditating comes in. You'll find resource after resource after resource of recommended listenings.
Yes.
Right. But, and I think you and I had talked about this off air once, where you preferred or had meditated with First Nations, like
Flute music.
flute music. Yeah.
Native flute music. Yeah. I've also that is very, very lovely actually to do. That's very soothing to do, and it's not distract. Like I'm kind of a musician, and like so music is could be, not always, but could be distracting to me because especially if it's got like instruments that I'm familiar with it, because I find myself like for example, there is meditation music out there with guitar players and stuff, like classical guitar players.
Sure.
And that is not what I'm going to be too busy focusing on that guy's playing than I am doing what I have to do. So I would recommend something very soothing, something very nice, and something that's not going to distract you, because you don't want to be distracted. That's kind of the purpose. Right.
We're not looking to jam out, but
No.
you do want to find something that resonates with you.
I've even used
in a calming manner, right?
Native flute music is very good for this. I've used also Aboriginal didgeridoo music, which it's not going to be everybody's flavor, but it is kind of interesting.
I think that's going to fall under one of the other categories, or it could anyway. So I'm going to come back to that. Go ahead and finish your thought.
I think I did. Just stuff like that. You want something that's very soothing, instrumental. You don't want words, unless you're doing a guided meditation or something like that, which
we're going to talk about.
Yeah. But yeah, I use Native American flute music, Aboriginal didgeridoo music, and I'm a kind of a nerd for. You'll see these a lot on YouTube, especially. Yeah, I can talk. Especially, it'll be certain frequencies of musics like. What is it, 432 hertz, and
they're called binaural
yes.
frequencies or binaural beats.
Yes, those I also will meditate to.
And that's what I want to come back to. The didgeridoo is very, very much like a binaural beat.
It is sort of,
or a binaural frequency,
right.
where it just happens to have that resonant frequency that. I'm going to interject some more science.
Cool.
Essentially, what it is, two tones, right? Which didgeridoo, I know there is a multitude of frequencies and tones you can get out of a didgeridoo, but those two, when you hear them, will combine in such a way that your brain generates a third tone on its own, processes all three of them together, and it creates an anti-anxiety effect. It actually changes I don't want to say changes the chemical makeup of your brain, but it forces you to release the serotonin, endorphins, the chemically stuff that makes you feel mellow.
Right.
Some other recommendations are classical music. Classical music in general tends to be associated with intelligence and creativity, learning, can assist with those.
They say that if you are pregnant, if you are with child, and you play classical music for the fetus 30 minutes a day throughout your pregnancy, it has been proven that they grow up to be more proficient at science and math. The children do.
Not surprised, given, I don't know if we've talked about this I feel like we may have, but classical music, despite the I will call it overall arching tones, the sound itself, even a low tone, is a higher energy vibration than a lot of other music,
Right.
which it tends to balance you out, so to speak, like your own body's vibration, which will assist in that calming meditation. And there again, it depends on your purpose for meditating, right? What are you trying to do? That may or may not dictate what you're listening to, if anything at all.
Right.
White noise is a big thing for some people.
Yeah, I can see that.
Whether it be something ridiculous like for us older generation people, the snow on your TV.
Yeah.
Or a lot of people like to use nature sounds.
Yeah, I've done that.
Nature sounds, I think, is interesting. There is a lot of, I will say, both yoga and meditation websites all say the same thing. When you listen to nature sounds to meditate, it kind of like connects to the primal part of your mind and makes you feel one with nature, which it takes you into a different mental space, essentially, and it lets you get into that meditative state easier.
Not to mention, too, I don't think we said this. I think, at least for me, I just assume people do this. Close your eyes.
I mean,
you could keep your eyes open if you really want to, but
that takes years of practice to be able to close your meditate.
Eyes. Because there is like you said, if you're meditating to nature sounds and all that, there could be a visualization aspect of it too, where you don't want to get, like I said, deep in thoughts or a deep you know what I mean? But like you could actually visualize, like if you're meditating to, birds,
sure,
trees or a waterfall or a creek or a stream or something, you could visualize that as part of your meditate. You know what I mean? And that's a lot easier to do if your eyes are closed. And
agreed.
Plus, there's, especially like if you're in your house or something like that, there's a lot of visual stimulation in your house. Like, pictures and, maybe, whatever. Maybe you got your cat or your dogs running around or something. If
you're a beginner or even a novice at meditating, even visual distractions are enough. Right. But like you had mentioned about Joe Dispenza, guided meditation is another great way to get into meditating if you've never done it before.
Yeah.
Essentially, guided meditation has a host or a leader, if you will, that walks you through what to do step by step.
And there's YouTube is a great tool for this. There's guided meditations that are as short as 5 minutes. And that's perfect for somebody who's new. That's perfect for somebody who wants to make it a daily practice, but finds himself a little short on time. And, you got to get going, do this, do that, or whatever. It's nice. It's 5 minutes, sit down, get comfortable. It makes a difference. It does.
Yeah. So getting into the different types of meditation. And I think it may or may not surprise a few people out there. I mean, I won't say I was a little surprised because I kind of knew it, but given our general area of the Northeast, especially Northeast Pennsylvania, I feel like this is going to surprise a few of our listeners. In our area, I don't want to say it's a huge thing, but there are a number of places that will teach yoga. And yoga was actually a form of meditation to begin with.
Yeah.
And I don't mean the current modern or westernized style of yoga, right? Go into a room, bend over, put your head on the floor, now kick up onto your ponytail.
Yoga is another broad brush thing, isn't it? Like there's a lot of
so much. Yeah. I don't want to say a lot of studies on yoga, but I will say I went down that rabbit hole for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I want to say that for lack of a better term, originator. I don't want to say originator because then somebody's going to come back and call me out on it and say I was wrong. But one of the people for sure that is in the original, the origin, if you will, early yogis by the gentleman by the name of Kundalini. Had a meditation practice that he called yoga, so to speak. And again, this is where that posture and flow comes into comes back, where you were talking about having that correct posture, right? The whole thought process behind this is essentially moving energy through your body. And if, just like the blood in your body, if you have an incorrect posture, you could actually cut off blood flow. And we've all had, your hand go to sleep, your leg go to sleep from sitting weird, right? So having that correct posture not only allows the fluids in your body to move correctly, it allows the energy to move correctly.
Draw it up through your chakra points, your 7 energy centers. Yeah, that's
Yep. And again, that's that style, that methodology, if you will. It's a lot on focusing on your breathing. Again, Tai Chi, very similar. Let me back up to yoga. I don't want to say that you can't use westernized or modern yoga as a meditation practice. You certainly can.
Sure.
Especially if you're doing it at home by yourself, like whether you just go through a routine or it's a guided thing you picked up on YouTube or something, then it is a moving meditation, if you will.
Yeah.
Very much like Tai Chi.
Right.
Actually. And Tai Chi, despite being a full-fledged martial art, I feel like that's a thing a lot of people don't really know. They just see, like the elderly doing it at the rec center kind of thing.
Yeah, it is.
Tai Chi, I like the idea of Tai Chi as a meditation practice because it, again, goes back to that body connectivity where, one, it's guided, right? And two, you focus on even the most minute aspect of each movement. So you get to learn how your body moves, connecting mentally to each muscle, strengthening your neurological connection. And again, focusing on your breathing. A lot of, I want to call them, you know what? I'm just going to call them string instruments. You'll see in a lot of Tai Chi videos, or I shouldn't say see, you hear a lot of Chinese or just general Asian string instrument music.
Yeah, that's their string instrument. Well, their music in general is pretty fascinating. We won't go down that rabbit hole. Let's just, my guitar teacher is his wife is Vietnamese.
Okay.
And she was raised listening to a lot of this traditional Asian music, and she is also a musician, as he is. And she used to laugh at Western music when she started to learn about it, because we have 7 notes in a musical scale. And the distance between each one of the distance between notes are what we call a semitone or a half step.
Okay.
That's like between A and B flat and B, and so on and so forth. In that half step, that's it. Like a musician like myself or anybody here in the West, we only hear one tone. We only hear that semitone between the two of them. In her culture, there's 40 tones in between there that they can hear. Far more advanced than Western music. I couldn't even begin to decide. That's like when my teacher told me that blew me away. So that's why when we hear that music, it sounds so dissonant to us, because we're not hearing the full thing, really. You know what I mean? That's what I'm getting at. So
yeah, I mean, that's not really surprising when you think about it. Eastern peoples, they've been playing music a lot longer than we have.
Oh yeah.
And two, it would make more sense that they would, I don't want to say it would make more sense that they have more notes, but I feel like their wisdom of the ages, kind kind of translates over that you would need more notes to affect more vibrations.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Sure. You and I off camera have talked about the studies of the human biofield and stuff and what tones can affect the body and the biofield and stuff like that. We'll have to do a video on that someday.
100%.
But vibration. Well, vibrate. But what did Tesla say? That's the secret to the universe: frequency and vibration.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed. And you see a lot of Eastern religions, whether it's various forms of Buddhism, Taoism, what have you. Meditation is a huge part of their culture, a huge part of their religion.
Mm-hmm.
And more often than not, they are not only assisted with music, but also guided.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, it's more of it's less guided physically in that they don't have an instructor, if you will, telling you what to do, right? As you're coming up the ranks of a lot of Eastern monasteries,
Mm-hmm.
you learn how to do it and you repeat those steps mentally. It's almost, I would say, less guided and more of a mantra type meditation.
Right. That makes, well, I think I can't really think of an Eastern religious practice that don't have some form of meditation in it. Hinduism and has it, and pretty, yeah. I mean, I can't, like you said, Buddhism, Taoism. I can't think of any.
Even the Western religions, believe it or not, have some form of meditation that is not required, but certainly practiced.
Mm-hmm.
That in itself is, if that's something you're interested in learning more in, I highly recommend that you dive down that rabbit hole and do a little research on your own. There's so much information that we just could not do it justice.
Yeah.
So that, with all due respect, that's not a topic that I'm willing to cover. I don't think Terry's willing to cover it. There are far better experts out there that could cover specific religious meditation.
Absolutely. Yeah, I wouldn't even begin to know where to start with that. Quite frankly. Anyway, back to where were we, I guess?
Well, I think we touched on a lot of different types of meditation.
Yes.
Moving meditation such as yoga and Tai Chi.
Mm-hmm.
We just kind of dabbled into the spiritual meditation.
Right.
Every religion, I think, has some form of meditation,
Mm-hmm.
whether moving meditation, whether stationary, assisted. Mantra. We had mentioned mantra meditation.
Right.
To clarify, mantra meditation, not quite an assisted or an instructor led, like guided meditation, but you do choose a word or a phrase that has a particular meaning to you, or an intention, if you will. And
that buzzword again, it keeps coming up.
You just repeat this mantra in, I would say, in to go back to your music reference, in a certain timing,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak, a pattern, if you will.
Cadence, yeah.
Cadence, that's the word I was looking for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting you bring up intention. Like I said, that's a buzzword with you and me. It's kind of a connecting factor with everything. You and I seem to talk about that quite a bit. But I decided, I saw this little quote right here. It was from a neuroscientist named Richard Davidson. And I saw it and I said, I got to write this down because I got to do some scientific stuff on here too every now and again.
Sure.
And he says, and he's a practitioner of meditation as well, neuroscientist, that having a narrative can increase the value of maintenance or the daily practice. And to me, when he says narrative, that means intention. That means you're having an intent by what your meditation has. You have just that, I can't think of another word even for it. That's an intention, a narrative. He calls it a narrative, but that's basically an intention. You're setting a reason for lack of a better term, for why
Sure.
you're doing this.
I mean, that's literally what we talked about in the beginning of the show, right? Like, why do you want to? What is your reasoning for meditating? Are you
Right.
are you looking for the mental health? Are you trying to be more physically healthy?
Right.
Are you looking for enlightenment?
Mhm.
Trying to reach a higher level of consciousness?
Yeah, I mean, it's all within your hands, pretty much. Whatever, you know, once again, whatever your belief system is with it, and however you feel, however and wherever you want it to take you, it will take you there. Especially if you have an intention to, or goal to get to where you want to get with it. I mean, I think from personal experience with me, it's just basically getting to a place of, well, lack of a better term, just getting to a place of nothingness, kind of just like a place where all the chatter kind of goes away.
Sure.
And all it's real. Another thing, just on a sidebar note, real quick, I recently I was having issues with my meditations in recent months, where I would feel jittery and all that, and it caused me to pretty much lessen my caffeine intake.
Okay.
Because it was like if I had a cup of coffee in the morning and then tried to meditate, I felt jittery and I wasn't focusing right, and I wasn't. So it's actually causing me to give up some, not the healthiest habits in the world. You know what I mean? Caffeine. I mean, we all do it, I think, but I've definitely cut back way on my caffeine intake because of it. So it in and of itself indirectly is causing me to give up some physical habits that aren't the best for you.
I mean, additionally, depending on if you went with a what I'm lovingly referring to as assisted meditation, using some sort of music or sound or what have you, depending on the music and or sounds you choose to listen to, it will cause a chemical reaction in your brain that would counteract the caffeine jitteriness.
Probably, yeah, I could see that. I could definitely see that. It's probably, but rather than me trying to figure out what frequency that is, I'll just cut back on the caffeine.
Sure.
I'm taking the easy way out on this one. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, it's a pretty cool practice. I'm into it.
Agreed. Anything else you wanted to say?
I did. Once again, I you do such a exemplary job every time with your research and their scientific stuff and all that. And I'm more of the experience woo spiritual guy of this thing, and that that's kind of where my wheelhouse is. And not that I don't research stuff, I do. It's just that I'm kind of like,
you prefer to experience it over
and not only that, but I kind of like to dive deep into stuff that people talk about, but isn't necessarily a proven fact, in which case we preface as opinions or whatever. But
sure,
it doesn't mean that today's opinion isn't going to be tomorrow's hard evidence. So that's kind of the hill I die on.
I feel like that's just science.
Yeah.
Right? Science starts as like a theory or an opinion.
But I came across this article, and it's called The Adverse Effects of Meditation. And this is something I thought, you know what? We could sit here and tout it all day, but every point needs a counterpoint sometimes.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
And I'm going to do this. Now, you're going to think this is funny because it's not, first of all, I've never met anybody that said that meditation ruined their life. I've never heard of that, but apparently there's some people that have had adverse effects on it.
Okay.
And this is a 2019 study of 1,232 individuals.
All right.
And they were practicing meditation, and they had them practice every day for 2 months. Okay, and at the end of this 2 months, 1/4 of the participants had what you would call unpleasant experiences, such as anxiety, distorted emotions, and just a negative opinion of their self, or a negative feeling about their self in general. And interestingly enough, the study left with the fact that, believe it or not, out of the quarter of the people, out of those, the quarter of the people, the 1,232 that were in the study experienced something negative. Less negative effects were experienced by women and by people who were religious or spiritual in nature.
Okay.
Which I can understand the religious and spiritual thing, because that's, that might be very well what their interest in the practice for.
Sure.
Anyway, fascinates me is that they brought the sex of females have less negative experiences with meditation. That's fascinating to me. They didn't offer a theory as to why in the article I read. I want to hear it.
So this is going to be like a two-part theory. Mm-hmm. One, what caused the negative effects, and two, why women had less negative effects. Mm-hmm. I'd like to preface this by saying, when I say women, I mean peoples whose gender at birth we would modernly consider female.
Right.
All right. So, this is simply my opinion, but one of the, I don't want to say main reasons, but certainly a big reason that a lot of Eastern religion peoples meditate is to reach that higher consciousness, that state of enlightenment. Mm-hmm. So, I feel like it is entirely possible that if you were not prepared to gain that experience, right? If like you just started, and you know how sometimes you're just really good at stuff, even though you really shouldn't be.
Oh yeah. You don't know why you're good at it.
Yeah. You're just like, I don't know. I've never played football before, but I seem to be really good at it.
It's weird when you're good at stuff you don't even like.
Right. So maybe some of these people had a negative experience because they may not have reached that higher state of consciousness, but they're on the bridge.
Right.
Right. And their body and mind just wasn't prepared for how to handle it. And it just kind of freaked them out a little bit, which could have caused, a chemical imbalance in their brain, and then thus makes them feel bad. Mm-hmm. Now, my theory, same premise, right? For religious people and women not experiencing those, religious people specifically, because all forms of religion have some form of meditation. Right. And they know in their heart of hearts that there is a higher power. Mm-hmm. Right. So to reach a higher state of consciousness would be getting closer to their deity of choice. Mm-hmm. Right. So their mind is already prepared for this. Even if they don't reach that altered state of consciousness, even if they're on the bridge, their mind and their body is prepared for that. Right. Same premise with women, in that women, and again, this is persons who are born as we know them as female today.
Right.
They tend to be more mentally in touch with not only their emotions, but also their body, and they spend a lot of time in their mind, not in a bad way, just they tend to process things in their mind more than what the natural born, what we would call male, do. Right?
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
So again, similar to the religious people, if they hit that bridge into the next stage of consciousness, or they reach that altered state of consciousness, their mind and body were prepared to deal with it, where the other people may not have been.
It makes a lot of sense, because psychologically speaking, men and women are wired a little bit different. And once again, I'm talking about sex, not gender. I'm talking about what you were born as, what your sexual organs are.
Right.
Basically, from what I understand, and once again, I'm not an expert, but what I understand about psychology in both sexes is, for example, when you take, we'll just take, we're all adults here.
Sure.
We'll take the practice of actual sexual intercourse. Psychologically, women want to have a psychological fulfillment before they can feel sexually aroused. So like women have to have a certain level of psychological arousal to be physically aroused in that situation, according to psychologists that I've read. So
I
for
would
example,
say that's on average.
they need to be interested in their partner on a mental
Sure.
aspect before they can feel it physically.
Right.
Men,
Right.
almost the exact opposite. We are always physically aroused.
I mean,
and we get a lot of mental and psychological gratification from the acceptance of that arousal by a partner. So it's kind of almost the opposite. So in the case of meditation, the females in the study, it may have been that they had less incidence of a negative experience with it, simply because they are more mentally, I don't want to say evolved. That's probably not the right word.
I would say they're on a higher vibration mentally.
Right. Mentally, they're feeling the gratification of the experience, not before it happens, but they're prepped for it to be a pleasant experience, maybe more than their male counterparts are.
I mean, that makes sense, really. Right. We're just kind of like 180 of each other.
Yeah.
Where women tend to need that mental or emotional connection for physical gratitude. Men get mental gratitude from the physical connection.
And that's, once again, we're on the Eastern religion kick here. It's the yin and the yang, as above, so below.
Agreed. 100%.
The point counterpoint. It's duality. But that's what this reality is kind of intensely based on, whether we like to admit it or not. There's a great duality in our reality. So we won't get into quantum physics today. But
well, I mean, I feel like in that, like, every religion teaches that as well. It doesn't matter what religion.
Sure.
I feel like they all say the same thing.
Sure. Yeah.
You can't have omnipotence on one end without having it on the other.
You'll get no argument from me. I think we see it every day.
Agreed.
It's everywhere.
But so let's just, I guess, wrap this all up, because we talked about a lot of things.
Yes.
We've been on a tangent or two.
7, whatever.
Yeah, something to that extent. Essentially, meditation. If it's something you're interested in, great. We highly recommend it.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of using binaural beats as an assistant.
Works great. I've done it. I do it from time to time. Yeah.
I feel like the big key, or a big key, I should say, is probably the reasoning behind it. You know, I don't know too many people that want to try meditation to say they tried it. There's usually a reason. An intention, if you will.
I think people go to it looking for an answer to a deeper question.
Sure.
I think mostly. I don't think, I know friends of mine that are into the martial arts. They meditate before their class. They have a class meditation. The martial artists are all into it. So that's another thing.
Agreed. Long and short of it is, if it's something you want to try, we highly recommend it.
Sure.
If one method doesn't work for you, sitting quietly in a room, in a chair, or on a pillow or whatever, doesn't feel physically good, mentally good, your mind's running away with you, try a different method. There's so many methods out there. So many various videos on all the platforms. Pick a platform. YouTube, Vimeo, Instagram.
I'm sure TikTok has stuff.
TikTok for sure, right? If one doesn't work for you, try another one.
Yeah. And, it might change your life. Some people, it really does. It changes people's life. It starts them on a new path, a more positive path. And we could all do with a little more positivity in our lives, folks. I don't care who we are or what's going on. We can all do with that. So if it helps, please give it a shot. That's all I got.
I'm going to say that's our 2 cents on it. So we'll catch you next time.
Yep. Be good, guys.
We've tried our best to provide all perspectives on these topics. If this type of content speaks to you or interests you, please subscribe to get notified when new episodes are released. Check out the show notes for all the references discussed. Do your own research, formulate your own opinion. Join us next time on What If Down the Rabbit Hole.